the other day when I was just chilling in my living room, I was watching this lecture series, I guess, and it was a conversation between Cornel West and Chris Hedges that the New School put on. And I think I've listened to it a while ago, but I put it on again because it was about regarding Chris Hedges' book, Wages of Rebellion, which everybody should check out our book club series that's available. The first 2 episodes are out now. But I was listening to the conversation, and this is from a conversation, I believe, in 2016. It was during the presidential election cycle of 2016. There's a joke in there about Hillary Clinton, I believe. But during this conversation, Chris Hedges shows his tremendous prescience. And the reason why he, didn't campaign for Bernie Sanders, and the reason he hasn't, gotten enthusiastically behind the squad. And that's because in this clip, he utterly destroys and debunks their theory of change to, it just reduces it to rubble. And I just thought it was really powerful that this came before any of this happened. He was able to see exactly what was going to go down and predict it. And he gives not only a dissection of what has occurred, but a solution to how we should move forward. So anyway.
So you talk about Black Lives Matter, the anti-fracking movement, the struggle to raise minimum. That's where hope comes from. It's not going to come from the political vaudeville of elections. As Emma Goldman said, if elections were that effective, they'd be illegal. It's going to come, as it always comes, from the bottom up. We forget that. That's Zinn's great contribution.
Howard Zinn, yes.
in the people's history of the United States. He understood the system was designed to shut us out. Slaveholding, white, aristocratic oligarchs who openly embraced genocide against Native Americans on behalf of land speculators, timber merchants, railroad companies, gold mining concerns, who shut out women, Native Americans, African Americans, men without property, created a Senate where everybody was appointed, created the Electoral College because they were terrified of popular democracy. That's how Gore wins 500,000 more votes than George W. Bush, and George W. Bush is president. It had nothing to do with Nader, by the way. And
Gore's refusal to fight.
And his refusal to fight. And so Zinn's, the beauty of that book is that all of the openings in American democracy were created by movements that often paid for it in blood. We had the bloodiest labor wars of any industrialized world. Yeah. Hundreds of American workers were murdered. Thousands, tens of thousands were blacklisted. And the Liberty Party, the abolitionists, the suffragists, none of these movements achieved power. But they created pressure on the centers of power so that power had to respond. And that gets to Karl Popper, who in the first volume of The Open Society and Its Enemies says, the question is not how do you get good people to rule. That's the wrong question. The question is how do you make the power elite frightened of you? Most people attracted to power, Popper writes, are at best mediocre or venal. And that's what we've forgotten, that those of us who hold fast to justice, it's not our job to take power. It's our job to make power frightened of us. That's what created the New Deal, and Roosevelt's quite open about it in his letters. Roosevelt says, he even says in a 1930 letter, if we don't create social reforms, we're going to have a revolution. He says to his fellow oligarchs, you better give up some of your money now, or you might lose all of your money. And that's how we got 15 million jobs, the public works program, Social Security.
And even those are concessions.
They were all concessions. And Roosevelt says...
significant concessions.
But he says his greatest achievement was that he saved capitalism. And we have to recover those movements, and I see that in Black Lives Matter, in the anti-fracking movement, in all of these groups are not getting any kind of media coverage. And the BDS movement. We are going to bring down Israeli apartheid college by college, church by church, institution by institution. That's how it's going to come.
But yeah, I think that right there, what he says is that we need to focus on making those in power afraid of us. It's not about getting the right people in power. That is a fool's errand, right? Those people will be corrupted by the waters of the swamp waters that they steep in, like we say constantly on this show. What we need to do is make the powerful afraid. That's how we got the New Deal. That's how we'll get the Green New Deal. That's how we'll get, justice for Black lives, defunding the police. That's how we'll get Medicare for all. That's how we'll get, BDS. That's how we'll get all of these things. It is not through electoral pressure. It is through bodies in the streets and mass movements.
Such a great and prescient clip, especially given the conversation we've had as a left movement over the last couple years or so, debating the squad's effectiveness, for example, or the effectiveness of these progressives or so-called socialist lawmakers in DC. I've long said that I think that if these people were going to really be useful, the one way they really could be useful was as organizers. Bernie Sanders always talked about how he wanted to be the organizer in chief were he to get in the White House. And that was always one of my favorite things he said. I really thought that was powerful. And there's no reason why the squad members couldn't also be organizers in chief with their respective power, popularity, Twitter followings that they've, all but squandered essentially at this point. So, if they're not going to do that, then Chris is absolutely right. What the fuck is the point? What is the good in doing this? There really is none. It's kind of a wasted effort. So, if they're not going to act like that, if they're not going to organize protests and call out the powerful, really speak truth to power in their own leadership, they could absolutely use their position to organize like that, but they don't. And so there's nothing wrong with doing some electoral politics. I think that especially on a local level, things like city council, I think we absolutely cannot abandon electoral politics. But I also think that there's a lot of truth in what Chris is saying, that we need to build a real movement that's capable of shocking the government, capable of really scaring them. It reminds me of that V for Vendetta quote, the government should be afraid of the people should not be afraid of the government. And, maybe that's a little bit cheesy, but I think it's damn true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, Gavin and I are prone to coming down pretty hard on the squad because I think that we all put a lot of stock in the squad. We all put a lot of resources, energy, belief, heart, soul, whatever the fuck you want to call it. A lot of people were really invested in that, especially from 2016 into, 2020. And to see the level of capitulation, to see that there was no organized efforts, there was, to hear them say, like, oh, we all vote alone. Okay, then why are you calling yourself the fucking squad? You have done nothing to organize. You've done nothing to cement any kind of power. You've created no unity. You've gone there and done the exact opposite of what you told us you were going to do. And people will simp for them and be like, oh, well, all politicians lie. Well, they told us that they were going to go in there and be authentic, true, moral actors. And if they're going to fucking lie to us, then clearly that's not what they're fucking doing. And I think at this point, all the dollars and cents that we're spending on these congressional races, oftentimes for people who aren't even in our fucking district, I think it's for the birds. I think it's a waste of fucking time. And I think all of it would be better served as community action, because when you're talking to people about community actions, when you're talking to people about their on the ground needs, when you're talking to people about how, it's fucked up that there's mice and cockroaches and mold in their fucking apartment, and how it's a damn crime that this place is still getting tax abatements and HUD money and all this kinds of shit. Doing that kind of work, those people know who the fuck to vote for. Those people know, because you're making real human relationships with them. You are talking about actual political issues, all of that kind of shit. You don't even need to go door knocking at that point. You're building real fucking, and I'm not knocking door knocking. I guess you can do it if you're really fucking dedicated to it. You think you have the fucking, white knight that's going to solve American politics, go for it. I'm just saying I'm fucking done with that shit.
Yeah, I totally feel you. And I think that the biggest problem with the squad's approach is they seemingly don't understand that the government does have to be afraid of the people, that the Democratic Party should be afraid of its electorate. And the squad seemingly has no idea of how to kind of harness that against the establishment. They just want to join the establishment. They just want to be friends with these people. They want to be amicable and try to get things done behind the scenes, everyone singing Kumbaya. That's never going to be effective. As Chris Hedges said, the New Deal wasn't passed by some, behind the scenes maneuvering. It was passed because there was a movement of goddamn people that were going to revolt if it didn't get passed.